It's about that time to grab your favorite snack and sit back and relax, because you are now listening to the Movie Time podcast with your hosts, LOWKEY Geek Rene Zalata and Blake the Wolf. Take it away, boys.
Oh, what's up, man? We're back. We're here. And we're going to be talking about Alex Garland today. So, when we last spoke, basically going over like, okay, what are we going to talk about in our next episode? I said, well, we got Civil War coming out. And I know we talked about Alex Garland before when Men came out. We were talking about Men.
Yeah.
But we really didn't do a lot of like rewatches during that time or really go into his career that much. And then shortly after we agreed, okay, we're going to do that. Then all of a sudden I see a headline, Alex Garland retiring from directing. And I was like, what? What's this all about? Now, I don't know if you had a chance to read the article at all or those headlines at all. But long story short,
I click every piece of clickbait that I possibly can. But go ahead and catch me up.
Yeah. Long story short, Alex had an interview and he mentioned that he's kind of lost the passion for directing, but he wants to focus on writing. And someone brought this up recently again because he's doing promotion for Civil War. And he said, yeah, I'm still in that same mindset. I'm not leaving the business. I'm not leaving filmmaking because filmmaking is not just directing. He wants to write. And if you look at his career, he started off basically as a writer. And,
as a novelist.
As a novelist,
and then a screenwriter.
Right. And, he writes his own movies that he directs. And, maybe he just, is tired of that process. It's a lot to do. It's a lot to do. Yeah.
They don't talk about it. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a whole thing.
It's a big deal. It's a big to do.
To do.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I guess it's perfect timing as we go back and kind of relive his career. Some of the things I've seen for the very first time in his filmography, or that he has a part in as far as like writing, screenplay, and all that stuff. But I guess he really started off as a novelist, right? So he wrote books like The Beach and The Tesseract, which eventually became movies, but he had nothing to do with the screenplays for those movies. Did you ever read any of his novels at all or no?
I don't read novels. I'm anti-novel, pro-movie culture. That's 100% me. And also of careers, I'm thinking he might be one of the most us guys. Villeneuve is up there. Yeah. There's going to be a few other crossovers, and there's going to be some directors we both love, of course. But like style-wise, he's pretty good at the like zombie movie, the space movie, the action movie. But he's also a really good writer, and I really like his screenwriting. But novel writing, not for me. Not a novel guy.
Yeah.
Flipping through books, would rather have someone else flip a projector. The images can move. You don't have to use your brain as much and less paper cuts. It's a whole mess.
Yeah. No, I get it. I'm basically the same way. I couldn't even tell you the last book I read. It's been that long. But so let's start with like the first screenplay that he wrote. And this is like the start of kind of the collaboration he's had with Danny Boyle earlier on in his career. And he does the screenplay for 28 Days Later, which is, yes, it is another take on the whole zombie genre, right? But we get introduced to a different version of a zombie that is fast moving. They call it rage. So they don't actually call them zombies. They're infected with a rage virus that makes them basically just go nuts and rage out and have like super strength and super speed and just nonstop movement. You don't have to shoot them in the head to kill them. They die like regular people, but they're quick and they act like in droves and all. And I guess in a way you could kind of say The Walking Dead took some of this premise because our main character, Cillian Murphy, wakes up in the hospital, waking up from a coma.
Sorry, Cillian Murphy? You mean Oscar winner?
Oscar winning.
Please
Cillian
refer
Murphy.
to him by his full name now that he's
Oscar
not just
winner.
This was his biggest role before Oppenheimer, in my mind. I know there's Peaky Blinders, and there's been some one-off movies. We'll get to another one later.
Yeah.
But he hasn't had many I'm on the posters, and this is one of the only ones of his career. But now, Oscar winner.
Cillian Murphy. Yeah, and this is going back 2002 right now. So
stubble, young, neck beard.
So young.
Yeah.
Penis out in the first shot he's in. Because he's like naked on the hospital bed as he's waking up from his coma.
That'll cost you. That'll cost a lot more money.
Quite a penny.
For an Oscar winner?
Yeah.
You got to pay a lot more to see all that.
Yeah. That salary goes up a couple million right there just for that. But it was, and I revisited this movie this week. I haven't seen it actually since it probably came out on DVD back in the day. Because this was not a movie I saw in the theaters. And just looking at it for the story, for the script, because the directing itself is very different. Danny Boyle, can we both agree that we need a new Danny Boyle movie? I mean, he's done so many great movies. The last one he did was Yesterday. I think we need a new one. We need something like now, because I love his films. I love the movies.
I also have a personal problem where I was introduced to both of them around the same time, college era. I would have seen this movie then, same DVD, not in theaters, but I definitely saw it around then. My problem is I get Darren Aronofsky and Danny Boyle confused for obvious reasons.
I can see that.
Although they're very different.
You
see it. You get it.
I can see it.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, Steve Jobs was good. The one you said Yesterday was good. He's not as prolific these days. Let's see what else he's got.
He's taking time. And it looks like
I was about to say Mother, the Jennifer Lawrence movie, but that's Darren Aronofsky. So
there you go. It still happens even today.
But let's mention that Boyle, there's a ghost collaboration kind of with The Beach, directed by Boyle. To Alex Garland wrote the novel, but not the screenplay. That was actually before 28 Days Later. So their collaboration in a weird way, phantom way, starts before 28 Days Later, but this is the first time when they're actually working together on the movie in a major accredited way, not just an adaptation.
It could be that Boyle was given the script for The Beach, and maybe Boyle's like, oh, who wrote the novel? Oh, Alex Garland. Oh, I kind of like how he writes. Maybe we should collaborate. Maybe, that started the whole thing. But with 28 Days Later, the story itself, I thought, was very well written, especially for the type of story at the time. Zombies is a big thing, always has been a big thing. A different take on it was great. The fact that we are not in America, we're in England, takes place like in London, was like really refreshing because it's a different area. I love that, in story wise, it's very clear cut. Like there's no real mystery, with the exception of where did this virus come from. Like there wasn't really like a detail of where did it come from, was it ever cured. There is something along the lines of, it sounds like it only stayed within London, and London was quarantined, so hence why they came across.
Before that was a thing.
Before that was a thing, for sure. Yeah. To think, I think Alex Garland has a way of predicting things in his scripts, and we'll talk more about that once we get to like Ex Machina. But it's so interesting how, a lot of these things that are foreign to viewers, we experience in real life later on. But with 28 Days Later, like I said, it's just a refreshing thing to do. And we saw the collaboration with him and Danny Boyle, which I think is a great collaboration. And we'll talk more about that when we get to the next film that they collaborated on. But what was your original take on 28 Days Later when you saw it?
I'm seeing this at the right age for it. It's a zombie movie, a group of friends, college dorm kind of situation. And I remember, you already know this is not necessarily my genre. Nowadays, I'm a little more comfortable with zombie stuff. There's like some good ones, World War Z. But this one I definitely remember freaking me out pretty hardcore, and it being really intense. And the story, it felt innovative for a genre that can otherwise be a corny genre movie. That it's susceptible to that, and this one felt innovative, which, as the writer, I'm going to give some credit to Alex Garland, as even though I didn't know who he was at the time, I remember being impressed by the setup, the story, how intense it was, but also it wasn't just the directing or the score or the acting. It was like the situation they were put in and how things worked in that world. Made it for a very effective zombie movie, and the kind that stuck with you, not just like, oh yeah, that was an intense, weird movie, that was crazy, but more of like oh wow, that fucked me up, and I'm going to tell my friends you got to watch that. That was crazy though. And the only other thing I want to point out, since we're so early in his career, something I'm finding interesting is The Beach is published in '96. The Beach, the movie, comes out in 2000, and then in 2002, dude's doing screenplay for 28 Days Later. That's a pretty quick trajectory. So while he was a novelist first, it's not necessarily one of those guys. I could be wrong. I'm thinking about the guy who wrote for Breaking Bad, was it? But it's like they're like a long run. They've been a novelist forever. They're a writer. There's sometimes a journalist or reporter will then get into screenplays later. Something gets adapted. They adapt their own things, something like that. This guy's kind of novelist, and then pretty quickly after jumping into screenwriting. And so it's been in his career trajectory, not right at the beginning, but that movie's getting adapted pretty quickly, and then he's getting pulled into Hollywood pretty early on. But I definitely, looking back now, knowing who Alex Garland was, that movie makes more sense as written by Alex Garland and someone who is a really interesting creator, good at creating a world.
Yeah. And I think, again, you and I would never read any of his novels, so we can't really speak on it. But it's quite possible.
I wouldn't
or any novels.
If I had.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't, in school, I never read anything. So I just had to like rely on what people told me. But
I'm not saying we should burn books, but we should prioritize movies and deprioritize books, if you catch my drift.
Whenever in English class they rolled in that VCR cart with the TV and say, we're going to watch a movie adaptation today, I was like, let's go. Mel Gibson in Macbeth or Hamlet or whatever movie he did, let's watch it. Like, I'm all for it. And then I was able to take a nap and,
if there's a show out there called the Book Time Guys, I'd like to meet him and have a word, because the Movie Time Guys, we know where it's really at.
Yeah, exactly. Or we could have a collaboration where we talk about a movie adaptation and we'll tell you why the movie is so much better than the book. And then we have like that.
Because every book lover's like, the book was so much better.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's like,
impossible.
We are going to debunk that whole take immediately. Movies.
And you have a jug of popcorn and a jug of soda while you're reading a book, sitting there in a recliner, leaning back, not doing any work except just absorbing.
That's it.
All the senses, except,
that's it.
Shout out 4D, sure, but maybe not that. But the audio is in your ears. The visuals are in your eyes. You don't have to do all this work making it up.
Yeah. I don't have to use my imagination to think of how the character looks like. Come on.
Force feed me the product. Thank you. Amen. Yeah. So the book is never better. And there hasn't been one example of that being the case. Next time someone says that, they're elitist.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. End of story. But as we go from 28 Days Later to the next collaboration here, well, first, talking about like the novel, he also wrote a novel, The Tesseract, which was made into a movie in 2003. I never seen that movie, so I can't speak on it. But again, it's another thing that Alex Garland originated that was turned into a movie. So it's quite possible that in his novels, he writes them in a way that kind of translates really well to movies. Maybe he just writes in a way that like easy to adapt to a screenplay. It's very possible. Or he's just very good at outlining the world or universe that he's trying to create the story in. Because he does collaborate with...
We know for sure. Yeah, please, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I was going to move into the next movie, but if you wanted to touch base on any of that.
Well, we know he's good at creating a world. We know he's good at collaborating in a movie with the way that directors have to collaborate. They're working with everyone in those credits in some way. And he's really... he's very creative. He makes sense to me as a writerly director, Now, if he switches over back to writing and less directing, sure. But those two things, he's a cinematic novelist, if not just a director. The Test Track, I have not seen. It's been on my watch list forever. All I know is it's one of those around the same era, college days. Somebody's like, dude, that movie's crazy. You gotta watch. It was one of those. It had like a little urban legend, cult classic kind of vibe about it. So I think I'm gonna try to see it, but it's also hard to find. So
it's one of those, right? Yeah,
it's one of those. Yeah, cult classic.
So he moves on, and then years later, we get that next collaboration with Danny Boyle and Alex Garland for a movie called Sunshine. Now, Sunshine is a sci-fi thriller with an amazing cast. If you look at everyone in that movie today, they have done so much with their career, and they're like big names right now. I mean, you have Oscar award-winning Cillian Murphy, right? You have Oscar award-winning Michelle Yeoh in the movie. You have Rose Byrne, who has been infamous for her roles in movies like Insidious and comedy classics like Bridesmaids and Neighbors.
Not infamous, just famous.
Sorry, famous, yes. Well known for her roles in those those type of movies. You have Hiroyuki, what's his last name? Sanada, for basically the typical Japanese guy that was cast.
Have you seen the most recent John Wick? You know exactly who this man is.
If you're watching Shogun, he is like one of the main characters in that show right now. I love that guy's an actor, but he's been like the staple Japanese gangster guy. If they need a Japanese guy, he was always usually the one cast for that. He's crushing it. Yeah. Then you have Chris Evans, Captain America himself.
Went to that as the after Hiroyuki Sanada.
You know why?
Mr.
It's because
Captain America,
because
so famous.
There's a MCU connection to the next several actors here.
You're damn right.
So you have Chris Evans, who is coming out of doing movies like Fantastic Four and is about to embark on the whole Captain America career, doing a movie like this. Then you have Benedict Wong, who is also in a very young Benedict Wong. It was so like refreshing to see him so young in this movie. Who again, famous for his MCU roles and all.
You didn't mention that Michelle Yeoh is part of the MCU.
She is. Yeah, she is.
You didn't group those together. Okay, I'm not.
Because
you're going in order and then you're skipping around. Yeah.
Hello, she is Oscar winner. Michelle Yeoh. That's why.
Oh yeah, she was an Oscar winner category.
That's why.
That. Yeah, damn right.
She gets her own. She gets moved up levels from Chris Evans and Benedict Wong there, and then you have other actors. You have Mark Strong in that movie, and then there's another actor in that one that at that time, around this time, he showed up in a lot of movies, but not a lot of people know who he is. And that is Cliff Curtis. I feel like he is one of those faces that you recognize so easily, but you probably don't know his name. You probably can't name all the movies he's been in, but he's been in a lot of movies, this guy.
Yeah.
So
he's got a face. He's got a very recognizable face.
Absolutely.
You've seen him.
You've seen him for sure. And then Troy Garrity, who finishes up the whole cast, the ensemble cast there. But it is a sci-fi thriller. I watched this movie for the very first time last week. I didn't even know this movie existed, to be honest with you. And I have to say, it's probably one of my favorite sci-fi thrillers ever made. I feel like it's underrated because you don't hear people talk about this movie at all, really.
Yeah.
It's like a hidden gem.
Yeah.
Hidden
gem.
Yeah. And it was very well directed, but the story in itself is very well done. And just to briefly say what the story is, Earth is going through another ice age because the sun is dying. So there's a team of astronauts and scientists who decide to go and try to bring life back to our current sun by delivering basically like a nuclear bomb, and in hopes to have it explode within the star to kind of give it life again. And we were following the journey of these guys going off and doing that. And of course, like in any sci-fi thriller, all hell breaks loose, and you have the crew trying their best to keep the mission alive and all that. And an interesting twist that comes with, I guess, the initial crew that failed the mission, and blah blah blah. We won't spoil anything here in this particular episode, but it's definitely worth the watch. And as far as writing is concerned, when you look at 28 Days Later and then you look at a story like this, Alex loves writing things that happen in a kind of weird apocalyptic kind of environment, something that is threatening humanity, threatening society, threatening, the earth. This time it's our own son, and dealing with that and seeing how that's going to work out. And story-wise, I thought it was brilliant. And all the characters brought something to the table. Everyone was very, very smart and brilliant. Great chemistry all across the board. Even the twist itself was just something I was not expecting. That's where you get a lot more horror elements in this movie when Mark Strong's character shows up. But
all I'll say is there's enough oxygen for 4 people. And if you recall that list of cast,
oh yeah, it's like
things get weird.
Yeah, it's like, first of all, it's bad enough that you have to come to that conclusion that you have a crew of like 8 people, and you think, I think we need to kind of get rid of some. Some
Don't
of
you hate it on a road trip?
Yeah.
Don't you hate it when you're going on a road trip with your buddies and you've been driving forever and you're like, wait a second, we're not gonna all make it.
We're down to now only 1 bag of chips, and we're gonna have to make some sacrifices. It's over. But yeah, it does definitely create a lot of tension, but the way that it all panned out in the end really, really paid off. Even though the ending was a little bit, I don't know, kind of way out there, this is where we get into like a lot of like the sci-fi elements. Still, it was very exciting. And we see once again Cillian Murphy being a lead here in this ensemble cast. He is literally on the front of the poster.
The other one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's a movie that no one, if you told anyone, hey, or asked anyone, have you seen the movie Sunshine? They probably look at you like, what? Sunshine of a Spotless Mind?
Okay, ask me.
Or Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind?
Fuck
Blake, have you ever seen the movie Sunshine?
Now I have to ask you a question before I tell the story about when I saw Sunshine. Are you a cop? Because you have to answer that question if you are. Are you a cop?
No.
Okay, I was like, wait, he's actually not answering.
I know.
So I was in college and my first time doing MDMA, and it was the night before, and I saw a matinee screening of Sunshine with the after effects still pulsing through my body. And if you just saw this, Rene, so you would remember, I've told people this, and they're like, the movie couldn't possibly be that intense. 1, the movie's fucking intense. Yeah. 2, it's a very bright movie because they are racing toward the sun.
Yep.
And then every now and then it'll be dark, but there's also a room they go into where they create another world to help with their, it's been a second, but like their mental peace, wellness. They're in the spaceship for way too long. And so it's like a room you can go to. And so it's like this tropical jungle or something like that, like a water
like an
fountain,
observation deck and all that. Yeah.
The first time you see it, you think it's real, and you're like, well, how the hell did they get there? Is this a flashback? And it's that cool of technology and that immersive. And all I know is I'm sitting in the movie theater. My eyes are larger than my eyeballs.
Oh, man.
Wow. I loved it. And of course I did because of the experience. Rewatched it later, still loved it. Now. It's great. And the amount of times, probably even to you at some point, I was like, you haven't seen Sunshine? You got to see Sunshine. You got to see Sunshine. Another one I'm going to throw out there while we're on the topic, just because this is the kind of friend I am. I look out for my homies. See Moon. No one else saw Moon. 2 years later, Moon came out, directed by David Bowie's son, starring Sam Rockwell. Have you seen it?
It has been on my queue for the longest time, and I have yet to see it. I've had it. Yeah.
Trust me. I'm the guy who recommended. And after you saw it, watch Moon. Trust me, so good.
No, I believe
it's a similar vibe, space, weird, mental. It's amazing. It was within a couple of years. This is definitely post the Armageddon Deep Impact era.
Yes.
This sounds like, as a premise, it could be as stupid as like a geostorm, or wasn't there? What was the movie last year that we ended up watching? and it was the dumbest space plot ever.
Moonfall.
You know what I'm talking about?
Moonfall.
Yeah. This could have been that fucking movie, but it wasn't. It was amazing. So you tell someone, especially a snob, you're like, yeah, I'm going to go see this movie where they got to blow up the sun to save Earth or whatever. And they're like, that sounds terrible. And it's amazing. That movie works so well. You're talking about crazy endings. We'll talk about a couple more movies, but Alex Garland, he can do an ending that's a little too weird.
Oh, yeah.
He has a few that land, and those are, in my mind, his best ones. Mm-hmm. But this is a special movie for sure. And second time he's collaborating with Danny Boyle. Second time he's officially doing a script. It's 28 Days Later is special. This one is really fucking special in my mind.
No, it really is. And if you're a fan of sci-fi, if you're a fan of like the sci-fi thrillers, because we've gotten many throughout the years, things that come to mind are like
2001: Space Odyssey.
Yeah, that, was that, I said Gravity recently. I mean, Armageddon. I mean, that's a cult classic, I feel like, in the pop culture zeitgeist. Independence Day, movies like that. But this is just less blockbuster-like and more intensity in story. You have to also think about it at the time. This is 2007. These people in this movie are not famous. Maybe Michelle Yeoh is very famous for an international audience, but within the United States, I mean, Chris Evans is recognizable because he did a lot of like those teen movies, so people could probably recognize him as somebody. But really, no one else.
People aren't taking it seriously either because of the genres they're working in, right?
Yeah.
And that, I think that applied. Michelle Yeoh, that was something that they were reckoning with her Oscar era, where they're like, yeah, we haven't taken her seriously in the movie she's been in. Chris Evans also, that can apply. So you have some people who either are on the way up or haven't been taken serious, like Cliff Curtis, one of the best, most reliable character actors out there.
Oh yeah, mm-hmm.
So good at playing this kind of role too.
Oh yeah, a little crazy, a little like on the edge there. You never know where he's gonna teeter or not, but definitely perfect casting for that. Yep. And everyone acted their ass off. Everyone acted their ass off, and I thought it was just really, really refreshing to see this. And again, for someone who's seeing it for the first time all these years later, it's effective. It works for me, and I highly recommend this. So it was nice to kind of see this for the first time. After this, he goes on to write, I guess, some episodes for a cartoon series, Batman Black and White, which I have no idea about. I don't think I've ever seen this.
He wrote Batman Black and White? No, you don't know about it. I definitely don't know about it. Okay. Wait, what? I thought you liked Batman. I thought you cared.
There's a lot of things that come out that I don't get a chance to watch. I don't even know anything about this, to be honest with you. But then the next movie he writes a screenplay for is for a movie called Never Let Me Go. In this movie, we see a very young Carey Mulligan, I believe, is in here. Andrew Garfield is in this. I didn't have a chance to see this movie yet, but I know you've seen this movie, right, Blake?
I got your back, bro.
All right, awesome. School me. Tell me what this movie is about.
So this is actually, I know I said I'm anti-book. This is based on a Kazuo Ishiguro book by the same name. Mm-hmm. And it is a book that was recommended to me, and I started to read, and then I stopped because I was like, wait, this is a book. Why am I doing this? But the book was on my radar, and then the movie was on my radar. I have never seen it until we decided to do this, and I was like, finally, I have an excuse, a chance. I rented it. It's not available for streaming for free. Would I full-heartedly recommend it? Not necessarily. If you are watching Civil War or deep dive in Alex Garland, it's interesting. It's in his wheelhouse enough, but it's also very different. It's a different directing style, definitely than him, and definitely than Danny Boyle. Mm-hmm. I think it should have been trippier, weirder, a little more sci-fi. I won't say too much, but I will say it's these. I kind of thought it was more of like a British drama, countryside vibe, and it's a period piece. It's like set in the 70s, and it looks like that. There's that in the trailer, but there's something amiss, and you're learning that kind of early on. Basically, these children are being raised in a school, and their purpose, you learn later, is to they're not just in any old school. They're being raised for a certain purpose.
They're X-Men.
No, not.
They're Black Widow assassins.
Turns out, depending on how you look at humanity, they're not even. They are. Spoiler alert: 5, 4, 3. They are clones, and they are being cloned and raised for a very specific purpose. And so there's this like, should we run away? Do we try to get out of here? They reconnect later in life at some point. Like, sorry, I'm not saying they reconnect later in life. That actually isn't even true. That's when they're little, and then you're seeing them as older versions of themselves, and things are coming to a head, and their relationship dynamics, and these two had dated, and these two had dated. It's a whole thing. Very compelling story. And this is where I'll say Alex Garland, still the fucking man. The way it's executed, to me, it was kind of boring. I wasn't as into it and enraptured as I am with anything else he's written, basically. It relies more on the British drama countryside relationship dynamics and less on the something's weird here. And maybe all intentional, and maybe the director executed the perfect movie that they wanted to execute, but for me, it didn't work as well. If you had to ask me to rate all of the ones that he's written, maybe I'm putting it. I think it's going to be lowest on the list, probably. Okay. Because of the directing, though. It is in his wheelhouse as far as sci-fi-ish adjacent, but reality and a very human story. It makes you think something's wrong, something is off in this world. He's building up a certain world, and it's a very convincing thing. And you got some great actors. And this is kind of like Sunshine. I'm not sure the exact trajectory of these actors in 2010, but like they are either super hot or about to go on a wild run of successful movies. So like Keira Knightley was in her bag and had been by that point. But Carey Mulligan and Andrew Garfield, this is before they are like Oscar nominated, red carpet sensation level stars, but they are known entities at that point. And it was sold kind of on the back of like the great acting, this little trio and this movie. You also have Charlotte Rampling and Sally Hawkins rounding out the cast. Also, you've got an Andrea Riseborough. And I'll also say Domhnall Gleeson, who will be making an appearance in this episode shortly with Ex Machina. So it might be one of the first times they kind of worked together where they were in each other's orbit. But overall, if you're watching all of them, this is a worthwhile watch. And I didn't feel like that sucked, but it was just not the most Alex Garland of all these movies.
Got it. Okay, that's good to know. And it's funny that you mentioned Domhnall Gleeson, because he does show up in the next movie that Alex wrote a screenplay for, and that is Dredd. He has a small role in Dredd as this kind of like computer expert within this building that they're in. He's in full-on makeup, so it's kind of hard to recognize him. But then when you see his name in the credits, you're like, oh, it's that guy. Of course it is him. But before that, Alex,
Computer Geek?
Like
is it the same universe as Ex Machina?
It's not. Okay.
It's
not. Yeah. It's not. Yeah. That's a whole different other Computer Geek in another world. But what Alex does too is an interesting thing is that he starts writing for video games. And he did it twice in his career so far. You know, he wrote for the game called Enslaved, which came out in 2010. And later on, he would write for a version of Devil May Cry that comes out in 2013. So it's interesting how he doesn't limit himself to writing just novels and screenplays, but he ventured into video games too, which is a very interesting career choice there. I haven't played any of those games, so I can't speak on them right now.
You haven't played those games?
No. Yeah, me
either.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, but I have seen Dredd, and Dredd came out in 2012. And this is not the Sylvester Stallone Dredd. This is not the I am the law. This is not that movie. This is Carl Urban and Lena Headey. Is it Headey? Lena Headley? Headey. Game of Thrones. Lena.
I'm enjoying this. I'm not stopping you. Keep going.
Well, you know who I'm talking about if you guesses. Know. Yeah. And then you have Donald Gleason, like I mentioned, in this film. It's a very short 1.5 hour movie, and it's very sci-fi, very post-apocalyptic. It is an adaptation of a very well-known, famous comic book. And this is the first time we see Alex Garland tackling a major IP property, right? And writing and adapting something like this for the big screen. For the story itself,
first/only time, right?
Unless I think so. I think so. Yeah.
And also, just shouting it out, this is a time when like remaking those movies made more sense until they flopped. Like Total Recall, the Christian Bale remake was the exact same year.
Yeah.
And all I know is that within that time of my life, I saw both trailers and was like, nah, I gotta wait for the reviews to come out. And in both cases, I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna see that.
Yeah. I remember the first time I saw Dread, I think it was on Netflix, and I was at a friend's house, and we were like drinking, and we were watching as we were drinking. And at the end of the day, we're just like, that wasn't a bad movie at all. Like that was very decent, very decent. Definitely much better than the Sylvester Stallone version. This one definitely took it more seriously. And there were a lot of visual effects choices in here that I thought was very well done.
I was going to say, were the visual effects better than the Sylvester Stallone one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, hands down. A whole lot. Very artistic, very colorful. Because I might
give this one I might finally take a crack at this one. I've been putting it off now that I know who Alex Garland is, which at the time he was just like a screenwriter to me.
Yeah,
I might give this one a shot.
You may like it. It's also, I will say, it's not a very you movie because it is very like a sci-fi heavy. But you might dig it for certain aspects of it. I think Carl Urban's performance is very well done, where he doesn't show his face at all. You just see like his mouth. So he relies a lot on his performance, on his like physical acting. And it takes place all in this one building, really. So it's kind of like a raid type of movie where it's just all in one setting. And at the end of the day, I thought it was just well executed. And again, just the writing of the story, the characters, it's just very intriguing. You feel intrigued for the most part. And they do deal with like this special drug that kind of makes the user feel like they're slowing down time. So in their minds, things are moving slow motion when it's really not. So that's where a lot of the visual effects kicked in and really, really like portrayed in a unique way. So I thought it was very well done. And again, very short movie. It was like 1 hour and 30 minutes. So it's very easy. Something you could have running in the background.
To it.
Oh yeah.
I love a shorty. I love it. It's an intense, effective shorty.
Yeah. So this is a bunch of...
Was it very Garlandy? Well, while you're talking, I'm going to ask you to pepper in the answer to that. I'm not trying to derail you.
I mean, it's very Garlandy in the fact that, once again, we're dealing with another futuristic or post-apocalyptic type of environment where there's a lot of sci-fi-like elements, a lot of those type of elements. When he comes to his writing, he definitely loves to paint a future that is dark, or a future that there's always some sort of doom or challenge or threat, right? So here, this universe we are in the future. Cities are pretty much non-existent. Cities now exist in these megalopolis buildings that they call these megaplexes. And, there's a lot of poverty and gangs rule. And then so much so that they have to create this kind of police force that they are judge, jury, and executioner all in one. So the minute they ascertain what your judgment is, they can execute you on the spot or arrest you. It's just very dark. And that was basically how the comic book was too. And, it is very along those same lines. Now, again, I can't speak for Never Let Me Go, but it's funny how he writes about clones and what's the purpose of those things, because he loves touching these little things that are controversies at the time. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Never Let Me Go in 2010, wasn't there that whole debate about cloning happening around this time, and whether it was a moral right to clone? They just cloned a sheep, I think, around this time for the first time. And I could be like off a couple of years here, but I feel like that was like an ongoing discussion.
Couple of years, you mean 9 years, but yeah. It was more in the water at that point than it is now necessarily.
Yeah.
But On that same note, he'll do those things that are like with Ex Machina, which we're going to get to soon.
Yep.
Robots, human robot relations, AI, which now we're all talking about AI.
Everyone's talking about AI.
At that point, he's like, I got a thing. Let me think about this thing. He'll find those, and then there will be a human and sci-fi overlap with a lot of his subjects. Never Let Me Go, more of that and more human, but more of that than anything else. Right. And there's even ethical debates and questions kind of coming up in the movie, not overtly, but there's some characters talking about the like, why were we created and how did things get this way? Mm-hmm. At some point, they have the children create artwork to try to show that they are human and to argue for their humanity, for example. But it's also not beating you over the head with a point the way that some movies do, especially in the conscientious, writerly, thoughtful genre movies now, like horror movies and sci-fi movies, where they might be a little too on the nose of like, this is about the environment or something. His are more subtle, but he is finding something interesting there in the overlap between take humanity, add this really crazy element to it, and then tell a story.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. So after Dredd, fast forward now to 2015, and now he makes the jump into directing. And for the first time director, he does a movie like Ex Machina. Now, I'll tell you, my first experience watching Ex Machina.
Who made the bet on Alex Garland as a director? Which studio made that fucking bet and said, hey, we got this creative on their way up. We're a little upstart studio at the time.
Who's the studio?
Got a good eye for who could make a good movie here.
Let's run it down here. This studio helped shape the careers of Ari Aster, Robert Eggers, right? Just to name a few. Mm-hmm. And that is A24. Good old A24 back in 2015. Correct me if I'm wrong, 2 years after they formed, right? 2 or 3 years? 1 year after they formed.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. 2013. And then, wait, no, this movie's 2014, right? So 1 year.
1 year. Okay.
Am I off by a year?
I think, well,
it's hard to subtract in the thousands, but
yeah, regardless, very soon after they formed. Now, it's okay. I'm the worst Asian when it comes to math, so it's okay. But Ex Machina comes out, and the first time I saw this was at, and you know this place, Nighthawk Cinema in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. I was there with a date, and we decided we're gonna watch this movie. We walked out of this movie and we had conversations for like the next 2 or 3 hours because now we get to see not only his writing prowess, but his directing prowess as Blake fiddles around with his potato chips. Or whatever.
I'm not eating Cheetos while we're recording.
But we get to see how he formulates a story for the first time by himself on the big screen. And, again, this movie basically challenges the viewer as to the morality between human-machine relationship, AI. The AI conversation is huge in this film all throughout. During a time in 2015 where AI wasn't that big hot topic conversation.
It wasn't knocking on your door just yet.
No, it wasn't.
You a package just yet.
Just yet.
Yeah.
But he kind of called it. He kind of called that this was going to be a major bullet point in a lot of people's minds and all that, especially in Hollywood. Plus, we get introduced to, I think, one of the biggest studs in Hollywood today, and that is Oscar fucking Isaac, who, in my mind, is very unrecognizable in this film. If you look at some of the stuff that he does later, maybe it's because of the shaved head and the full-on beard. It's kind of hard to say, like, oh, yeah, that's Oscar Isaac. Very unrecognizable to me now watching it again all these years later.
You're so incorrect. I will say he looks very different than the Oscar Isaac we know and love today.
Maybe it's because...
I will also say, like 2011, he's in Drive, and I've been a fan of him since then. Okay. And I've been very aware of who he is in his career and seen his evolutions at various points. So I was on the Oscar Isaac train, not literally, unfortunately. But I remember going into that movie being like, oh, hell yeah, he's in this thing. So that take mine with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But it's definitely Oscar Isaac. He has all the qualities, but he definitely, it's a weird iteration of him because now the hair is such a staple. It's probably written into his contract.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing the hair, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because he's known for his hair. He's known for being clean shaven, and he has this full on beard. He has an accent, like a very distinct accent all throughout. So it is a very different.
Also, I'm going to shout out Inside Llewyn Davis and A Most Violent Year. And so Inside Llewyn Davis happens, the Coen brothers Oscar Isaac movie, the year 2 years prior, still doing math here. And then A Most Violent Year comes out the year before. And I remember going into A Most Violent Year being like, fuck yeah, Oscar. And then kind of being disappointed because I was like, damn it, I was never disappointed by this man before. Then Ex Machina happens. And he's kind of in that realm where he can be the star of an indie movie kind of, but he's not necessarily Star Wars star yet, but he's on the cusp.
Yeah, for sure.
Where's his Star Wars when was Force Awakens?
Oh my god,
it would have been not long after, right?
This would be 2015,
so same year.
15.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So, and it's a holiday release off memory. Yeah. And Ex Machina is April. So I don't know if how his, like, if he signed one contract and was like, actually, he's not going to postpone filming Star Wars, I guess is all I'm saying.
No, definitely
Maybe they saw a cut though and were like, ooh, this guy is pretty nice. Yeah, he was established enough, and he's also, looking over his filmography, he had a lot of small roles.
Oh, sure.
He was acting his butt off trying to get on that poster for years. I'm looking at a movie called Lenny the Wonder Dog, which has a 2.7.
I actually know that movie.
Wait, never. Yeah, we can't get it. This poster is ridiculous.
I remember seeing the cover at like Blockbuster Video, Lenny the Stupid Wonder Dog. And I'm just like, this looks ridiculous.
He's fourth on the call sheet for Lenny the Wonder Dog in 2005. He then has credit after credit after credit, and maybe, like, I'm going to just ballpark it, 20 to 25 movies in. Then he's going Ex Machina, then Star Wars.
Well, he's very much like Pedro Pascal. Like, Pedro Pascal has been acting his ass off for a long time too, in small bits here and there. And it's only now, like in the last 4 or 5 years, that he's made a huge name for himself in the more general zeitgeist of people who watch and consume
speaking
media.
At Golden Globes. He's getting interviewed on red carpets.
So, but here I think this is the first time that more audiences get to see who Oscar Isaac is. Plus, we also get to see again the return of Donald Gleason in this role here. Computer nerd.
What are you calling him?
Donald Gleason.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just make sure. Yeah.
Who also stars in Force Awakens and Star Wars with Oscar Isaac. So it is kind of crazy how they both like kind of hung out together. And then we get, I think this is the debut of Alicia Vikander, right? The actress who plays the main AI robot in this one. We also get Sonoya Mizuno in this movie too. Doesn't speak a lick of any dialogue, but very powerful performance. And someone who likes working with Garland, because we get to see her again later on in Devs. I think she was also in Annihilation in a small role too. I could be wrong. Or plays a voice. I think she does a voice in Annihilation.
Min, she's the phone operator.
Right.
Is what I'm thinking of for sure.
Right. Yeah. So Ex Machina comes out, and again, challenging the audience to agree or disagree the importance of AI or how it could affect humanity or the relationship that could form between humans and thinking machines and all that. So there is definitely a kind of like a moral story here. It's a movie that ends not in the way you think it's going to end. So this is talking about, again, the way Alex loves writing his endings and how they could be very unique and out of nowhere. And for some people, it may be unsatisfying. But I think for someone like you and I, we love these type of endings that are like very open-ended.
Satisfying.
Yeah, very open-ended. We can have discussion and all that. And once again, great performances all across the board here. Very small, I guess you could call this like a chamber movie where it just takes place in this one house. and the interactions amongst the 4 main characters here.
That is similar from Dread and also Min, which we'll talk about later. But
yeah,
that man can give you a setting and then run with it.
Yeah, and you won't mind. You won't mind the fact that you're just in this one location because it relies heavily on the characters themselves and your kind of involvement and kind of investment in these characters and their relationships. So I know you've spoken about Ex Machina a lot. So how was it the first time you saw this movie?
That's actually gonna be hard to recall because I've seen it so many times. All I know is it was a hell yeah at the theater, like a fist pump, like, oh my gosh, amazing. And this is where it's his first directorial movie, but this is where it was basically, I'll go see anything Alex Garland has done probably forever. Hopefully this isn't his last one, because I love this movie so much. And so far, to me, this is his most successful movie. We can talk about Devs in a little bit. That's up there. But Ex Machina is so part of my consciousness that I literally, unrelated to, it's funny, unrelated to this episode, I rewatched it a week ago. And also, I re-listened to our Min episode, and I said the exact same thing in that episode. And that's how often I'm rewatching, where anytime we record an episode, I may have rewatched Ex Machina the week prior. That I fucking love this movie, and it affected me so much at the theater. I saw it multiple times in theaters, and then since then, it's the point where like I can just throw it on any old time.
Yeah.
You know me that I really love an indie auteur. Give me some Coen brothers, give me some Wes Anderson, give me some Scorsese. But my happiest place is more of a Villeneuve, a Tarantino, something where it's I do like genre movies when they're created by true creators. And this movie, you're talking about the setting, we're talking about the acting, the plot and the way it's set up. And if you're talking about the ending and how some people are not satisfied, I love an open-ended movie. And this one to me is as conclusory as I would like for a movie to be. Yeah. They show where she goes afterward.
Yeah. Which is something that she already said that she wanted to do.
To Oscar Isaac's character.
Yeah.
We know what's the deal. Now, in theory, it could be a sequel. Tell me that Alex Garland, give him $10 million, come off the bench, make Ex Machina 2. I want to see what happens with it. It's like when you get Jurassic Park and they come to New York City or whatever. Like, I want to see what happens with her character when she's interacting with random dudes in a city. That sounds amazing. But I'm fully satisfied with that ending, and inch by inch, every bit of this movie.
Yeah, no, it's such a well done movie, and I think for anyone who is a fan of sci-fi, this is one of those movies that came out in recent years that is on a lot of people's lists when it came out. And I feel like I envy those who are watching it for the first time now as they're preparing for Civil War, or they saw the headline that we all saw. I'm like, who's this Alex Garland guy? And they decide to go back in his filmography and check the stuff out. It is such a well done movie. And we get a taste of now what he's capable of directing wise, which now leads us to 2018 in Annihilation. Bigger budget, right? More stars to work with. Here you have Natalie Portman that he's working with. You also have, let me just run down the cast of characters here. You have, of course, Oscar Isaac. He works with him again. Tessa Thompson, a very young Tessa Thompson here before she kind of blew up. Benedict Wong is also in this movie as a voice. I think Lomax, I guess, is one of the voices there. Jennifer Jason Leigh, who is a very well-known actress for a while. Yes, Sonoya Mizuno played Humanoid and Katie, a med student in the film. So she is in this. Gina Rodriguez, who's better known for her TV stuff and her streaming shows that she's involved in. And then, I mean, very, very good cast here. But here we go a little bit more on that teetering of blockbuster sci-fi-like type of movie. Very grander scale in this one. but very much an Alex Garland story, where you have this alien thing that lands on Earth that's spreading. And you have a team of people who are trying to figure out what's happening here. Because every time it expands, or every time someone goes in there, they never come back. And one person comes back, who is Oscar Isaac, who happens to be the husband of Natalie Portman. So, questions are asked, government gets involved, and now she is tasked to, I want to find out what happened to my husband. And it sounds like all of these women that are going in there have something that happened in their lives that is kind of forcing them to be like, if this is the end of it, this is the end of it, kind of thing like that. And in a way, and this is one of those movies that at the end of it, I kind of had to like sit down and think about it, because I watched it for the very first time recently. I didn't watch it when this came out. I had to go on that YouTube rabbit hole to kind of see theories and explanations and all. Yep. And I do like the kind of explanation that you could see this alien thing as a cancer, and how the cancer kind of spreads and grows and does things to engulf whatever it touches or change things that it touches, And the whole thing here is that it's kind of like a body snatchers thing, where this alien thing will clone you and then try to mimic everything that you do, which Natalie Portman kind of figures out, and that's how she decides and figures out how to defeat the alien at the end of it. It's like, well, you're going to mimic me? All right, I'm just going to mimic myself killing myself, and then you just run away the last minute. And that's basically what happened there at the end. And I'm sure you could go into like further theories and explanations about a lot of the stuff that happened here. But we get an Alex Garland that is very, throws a lot of stuff at us, but is not always clear about everything. And this is probably one of the first thinking movies that he's put out there as far as writing and directing is concerned.
Real thinkers.
Real thinker.
You got to do some deep dive theory. What science thing is this? What does this represent? Some of the other ones, there will be philosophical discussion around it that we were talking about before. But it's one of those that's more mindfucky than, oh, that was an interesting debate, and I understand what happened. I had the same feeling leaving the theater going like, what was that?
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
Weird.
Yeah. And that was my reaction after I watched it too. It's just like, I'm so lost, but I know I liked what I saw. I just want to understand it a little bit more, and I think those YouTube videos really helped. And we can kind of see like the blueprint he has working on, because I feel like with Ex Machina and Annihilation, not only do we see his style of filmmaking, and I think it's safe to say he went to the same J.J. Abrams school of lens flares in a lot of his films. We see a lot of this transfer over to Devs, which is a TV miniseries that he does for, I believe it was like Hulu that he did this for. But what was your take on Annihilation when you watched it?
I, again, blank check for Alex Garland. I will see anything he makes, and I was fully in that place. This was the follow-up to Ex Machina. I remember being, I'll say, amazed and disappointed at the same time. He took it another level with the psychological aspect of it that we were talking about. And he also, bigger budget, more special effects. Yeah. He's really good at that contained space or creating a world. He's a novelist. He's really good at creating a world. So to me, Ex Machina works that way. This is a very expansive world, and we're seeing things that do not exist on this planet. Yeah. And some really bizarre, not just technology, but like organisms or whatever you want to call it that do not exist. So it's one of his most imaginative and expansive and world-bending movies at that point. It's a little less for me in that I prefer it when it's a little more human. And parts of the story, maybe it was also the discussion afterward. I don't love it when I have to Google a movie afterward. If it's self-contained, that's preferable for me. Yeah. But similar to you, I had to look stuff up, and I also was like, wow, that was really well done. It was well crafted, well executed, really well made. Personally, if I'm the final editor and they say, how do you want to end this thing? Or should we make some other choice? Like, my audience feedback thing would be stuff like that. But when I'm handed a final product, I don't like doing the what if game. Right. So I'm not going to necessarily try to, drive from the passenger seat and say, oh, he could have made it clear or should have done this better. I really enjoyed, I was engrossed by the movie. Parts of it were a little too unsettling for me, but effectively so. It was well executed in that it had a real reaction within me. And I also can say, I've only seen this one time since it came out. Ex Machina I've seen literally countless times. This one I've seen one more time because it is a little more unsettling.
Yeah.
Not just like the gross images on screen or the disturbing sci-fi world that is being created before your eyes, but also just like the ending. I feel like Ex Machina is exactly the kind of conclusion I love in a movie. And this is the kind where I'm a little more, I have a headache afterward from doing a lot of reading. So that's kind of my takeaway from it, and why, especially up to that point, Ex Machina was my favorite movie. And you play the expectations game. Ex Machina is one of my all-time favorite movies. So I'm more like, damn, I'm missing something. I wish it had that special sauce.
Right. Yeah, that little spark that you got from watching Ex Machina. And I think the overall reaction to this movie was very similar in the fact that a lot of audiences were confused by it. And I think it kind of forced it to not be highly as regarded as an Ex Machina. But I think for me personally, I still love how it was formulated and how it was all put together. And yeah, I had to do, like you, I had to do research afterwards, but I didn't mind it so much, especially now that I kind of get a sense of what the messages were there, what they were. Like, oh, now it makes perfect sense to me. And it kind of lets me see the movie in a different light in a way. Very interesting.
We'll talk about that more with Men, with that open-ended, metaphorical type of ending.
Yeah.
That'll be a thing that comes up, and I'm really curious. We're not getting to it yet, but we're in that phase where I'm more curious about Civil War in light of his more recent movies.
Yeah.
Than the first one he directed in some of his earlier screenplays. I'm more like, if he's going that route, this could be very different than those trailers make me think. Fans. Yeah. I'm so curious, but we're getting into that part of the conversation this episode of his career.
Yeah, no, you could see that he's not afraid to challenge the audience and make the audience think more, right? Because after this, now he gets into Devs in 2020.
I'm gonna let you set this up. I have to step away for 1 second, but
sure.
Set up Devs.
Yes.
Episodes.
So Devs is a limited TV series that has a lot of great performers and actors in it. Of course, Sonoya Mizuno, he teams up with her again. You have Nick Offerman in here as one of the main actors and characters. He is kind of like, I guess if you're to kind of put it as like a Steve Jobs or or an Elon Musk kind of guy who's involved in creating this company. You have Stephen McKinley Henderson, who is a great character actor too. Someone that I really appreciate as a performer. Zach Grenier. Kaylee Spaney is in here, who is probably someone at this time is not very well known. But of course, me personally, I now that I see her name, I just think of Priscilla Presley right away, immediately. But this is a show that is a very interesting concept where you have a computer engineer who kind of she kind of finds herself investigating this secret development division within her company, who may or may not be responsible for the disappearance of her boyfriend. And we get into this whole moral tale of getting people's thoughts and ideas and memories and how to formulate technology behind it, how to create, I guess in a way, it's kind of like AI and cloning in certain aspects of it. Now, there's only so much of this I can talk about because I've only seen half of the season of the series itself. But from what I've seen, it's very Alex Garlandy, and so much so that I think when I was watching this at the time I was watching it, it was very heavy. So I remember after a while, I had to kind of take a little break from it because it was just episode after episode was just very heavy. A lot of setup, a lot of character development, a lot of story creating and building and universe setting and all that. And in a movie of like an hour and a half, 2 hours, that's fine. But when you're going episode and episode and episode of just heaviness and heaviness and heaviness, I was just like, I need a break. I need a timeout, and I never went back, not because I didn't want to. It's just because, life got in the way and all that shit. I know you've watched this series yourself, and outside of what I already said, what else can you talk about this series and how Alex Garlandy is it? Because it is very Alex Garlandy from what I remember.
It might be the most Alex Garland thing because it is kind of at an intersection of some of these different genres and types of stories he's told that we've talked through.
Yeah.
I will say the release date is important, at least for my experience of it. I was, again, all in on the Alex Garland project at this point. So when I heard about this show, I was geeked for it.
Sure.
And first night it comes out, it premieres on March 5th, 2020. And what we would all discover is that within a couple weeks, we would have a lot of time on our hands.
Oh, yeah.
So it was appointment viewing, and each week I watched it. And I will also say you're totally right. It was heavy. It was difficult. It was coming out off memory on Sunday nights, and I would have a hard time sleeping the nights it came out, partially because of how heavy it was. And also, when my brother had time on his hands, we created at the time Brother Movie Club is what it would become. But for this, it was Dev's Club, because 2 episodes in, I go, his name's Justin. Justin, you got to watch this show. And in fact, we should hang out virtually. And what we should do is watch the show together at the same time. Yeah. And then that later became Brother Movie Club. So for the rest of the stay at home period of pandemic, we would, every single week we would watch something. But what started it was Devs. And every week we would watch the show. There'd be little texting through it, kind of like the asides you might say during a commercial break or something. Mm-hmm. And then he and I would do a phone call and talk through each episode. That is how I would recommend you can best watch this show, is when you're stuck at home, can't go anywhere, and are watching it 1 week at a time. And even though I usually prefer to binge things, this one is one you can't set aside one episode a night or something like that. It is very immersive, very convincing. It is telling a very human and very intense. It's sci-fi, but that world is real close to our own, kind of like Ex Machina in a way. Yeah. You just take a tech giant that currently exists. They're obsessed with AI and robots that exists right now. And then you put them in a crazy setting and give them a little premise. And the next thing you know, shit gets weird. This one is that way, but it's a campus. So instead of it being 2 people stuck in a house, it's a tech campus.
Right.
And this poor girl, it was my first time seeing Sonoya Mizuno. I've since seen her on Broadway. I'm a huge fan. Her role in Maniac, another pandemic era TV show, Jonah Hill, Emma Stone. Sorry,
that's right. That was on Netflix.
Emma Stone.
Oscar, 2-time Oscar winner, Emma Stone.
Okay, have you seen Maniac?
I haven't. That's another thing on my queue. Of course.
Do you love me?
Do
you trust me? Okay.
All of it.
When you're done with Sunshine, watch Moon. When you're done with Devs, watch Maniac. And also, I'll say Maniac has more comedy and absurdity in it. So while it's very fucking heavy, it is also it's easier. And because this one is just drama, depression, heaviness, death.
God, yeah.
The end of consciousness as you know it kind of stuff. And Maniac is that, but for a couple people, and it's their world becomes ridiculous. Sometimes funny, sometimes fucked up. This one, it's hitting that highly dramatic fucked up button repeatedly and playing that note a lot. The writing is incredible and immersive. And you're right, when it comes to a movie, it's much easier. It's a much easier pill to swallow. When you're talking about a TV show, the fact that the dude made this, I don't know how much that contributed to his eventual burnout. But think about a director who's making equal quality product for 8 episodes versus a 2-hour movie. This is an 8 hour. I maybe you recall if they're 30 minutes or an hour, but I feel like it's closer to an hour.
I think it's like 45 minutes, maybe, or something like that. Yeah, but it's a lot. It's a lot of content.
It's a lot, and you're not gonna in one setting. You'll definitely need maybe an anti-anxiety pill and a long nap if you were to try to swallow that all at once.
Yeah.
But holy shit, this is right up there with Ex Machina for me for favorites. And if Ex Machina is a favorite movie, this is a favorite TV show. Everything that I liked about Ex Machina, I can basically say here. There's just some differences in plot and setup. Mm-hmm. But again, creepy tech giant, person encountering new technology, and things go sideways.
Yeah. Yeah. How did it end? Did it end like in a very open-ended kind of way, or did it have your very? Is it your very typical Alex? I'm not saying tell me how it ended.
Nice try.
Yeah, just like, is it a very Alex Garland-y type of ending?
I'm not going to spoil deaths for you. You got to watch this show, my dude.
Is there potential for another season if there could be one?
I will say it felt very conclusive.
Okay.
Now, technically, anything can be IP and come back.
Sure. Yeah.
I feel like that this season and as a show, like, it doesn't seem like there's any reason to think it's coming back.
Yeah.
It's pretty self-contained. I honestly can't tell you, like, if at the ending there's a little thing where you go, oh, that could be another season. I also could be wrong, but my understanding is that this wasn't supposed to be. This is more of a mini series than something that they would have been even trying to make another season.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah, it felt satisfactory is how I'll put it, without trying to say what's open and what's closed.
Right. Okay. Yeah, no, I've been dying to get back to it, and I just need to dedicate some time to do that. And especially now that I'm in the Alex Garland mindset right now, maybe it's a great time to go back to it. But
you have a week till Civil War comes out.
Sure, I'll binge it. The one thing that we said not to do for this, just not, or maybe I'll do 2 episodes a night or something. Yeah. But after this. And speaking of burnout, and I can kind of understand what you're talking about, we now get into Men, 2022.
We talked about this one on an episode.
Yeah, we did a full episode. I
re-listened to it, catching up. Not the funnest conversation. it was fun. It was in. There's a lot to talk about afterward, but also what an experience to watch that movie.
Yeah, and everything that we've been saying about Alex Garland, his writing, his directing, all came to a head in this one, because it is very vague in a lot of ways in what the messaging is trying to be. It's very challenging to the audience to kind of watch through it and, kind of go through the experiences that Jessie Buckley's character is going through. It's a nightmare of a movie. It is just a nightmare of a movie. Yeah. And it's scary. It's disturbing. And especially the way the movie ended. It's very haunting and very horrific. And this is the first time that we actually see Alex Garland being so horrific in his way that he's trying to complete this story of this person, this character that he created. And in a way, it's almost as if, like, was Alex angry when he was making this film? It feels like he kind of was.
I was thinking about it, about this movie again.
Yeah.
And especially in light of him being like, I'm done with movies.
Yeah.
If when someone's about to quit a job, or they're mad at their teacher, something, and they're like, or they're done with a relationship, and they're just like passive aggressive.
Right.
And they're just like being shitty sometimes. And they're like, it's almost like he was angry at the audience after Annihilation or the studio or something. But he doesn't give a fuck if you leave that theater happy. No. And it's almost like he went out of his way to go, yeah, that's a cool idea, because it's going to really piss them off. It's going to irk them. It's going to turn their stomachs, and they won't feel satisfied. It'd be like an expert chef making you sick, and you're like, I think you did that on purpose, because you made a well-crafted meal, and I do not feel good. And I did you poison me? It's pretty fucked of a movie. I'm not trying to take away the artful the craft of it.
Yeah,
pretty well made. That's, I think, something we both agreed on.
Yeah,
there might be some things that would have made the movie more fun and enjoyable. The way I was pumping my fist in Ex Machina and Dev, just like give me more every week, binging or like just on the edge of my seat asking for more. This one, when it was over, I was like, looked at my buddy who had an even worse time. I was like, what the fuck was that, dude? Jeez,
it was exhausting. I felt exhausted.
There.
Yeah, I felt exhausted afterwards, and it was just
worse than Dev's.
Yeah, because at least Dev's, even though there was a specific message there, it wasn't a horrific kind of thing where you got this like, basically you got punched in the gut and the face at the same time, and it was just, I felt so bad for this main character and everything that she went through. We have to also say Jessie Buckley performance. Like extraordinary here. I mean, this was just a brilliant performance, and she really carried this movie all the way through. Really, really great performance. But I think because of how, I guess, visceral it felt for a lot of people, this is the lowest rated movie he's ever done so far to date. Not well received, but I will say that even though it's not my favorite of his, it's still an Alex Garland product that I appreciated because it had a lot of his brilliant story creation and world building. And again, he does a really good job at having you invested in the character and feeling what that person is going through. And boy, did we feel everything that this poor woman was going through. It was crazy. Very, very crazy. And again, as we've said before, challenging the audience. And this one not only challenged the audience, but I think, like you said, and what I was alluding to about him being angry, it felt like a big fuck you to everybody. It's just like, you know what? Kiss my ass. like I'm kind of pissed off. Which now leads to the upcoming release of Civil War. Now, I've heard a lot of great stuff about this movie coming out.
Oh, fuck. Don't tell me that.
But
because my expectations, I've been trying to lower them.
I know.
With these last couple movies in mind.
Of course. Yeah, so have I. But I do feel like, and you alluded to this earlier too, could it be a very different movie from what the trailers are telling us? Because right now it feels like it's very poignant now in the environment that we're in. We are in an election year, and there's a lot of discourse in America, and this covers a lot of that in the trailers that we've seen. But at the end of the day, could this just be a simple story and kind of nod to journalists and like wartime journalists and all that? Because the main character is a wartime or like a journalist but just in nature, and we are going to be experiencing everything that she's going through as all of this is transpiring. So it's going to be very interesting to see, but I think it's safe to say you and I are very intrigued and can't wait for this movie to come out. This was like one of our most anticipated movies for the year, right? So how are you feeling about this as we are approaching the release of this finally?
Well, you know me, now I'm nervous. I want to answer that, and I also want to ask you, what are you expecting?
Yeah.
Plot-wise, how it'll be. Will it be sci-fi? It looks like his least sci-fi one. Is it a futuristic, or take current themes we were talking about, is take a human experience and then add a twist to it that isn't that crazy?
Right.
What was your question? Am I excited? Am I nervous?
Yeah, like how are you feeling about it? Yeah.
I've intentionally avoided trailers. I've seen it, but I've been intentionally avoiding content, and
sure.
I want to know as little as possible. At some point, I was somewhere and a Kirsten Dunst interview popped up, and so I'm watching her talk about it. I'm like, maybe it's because I'm not loving her sales job, but this is a different movie than I thought. Mm-hmm. It might be a very human story. It might be a very the press team and their experience of this.
Right.
I'm kind of hoping Leave the World Behind last year. I'm hoping to have that feeling.
Yeah.
So what do I expect is if I leave with that feeling I had from Leave the World Behind, I will be satisfied. And if it's the Alex Garland version of that, I'll be way happier. I will be pumping my fist. I have a feeling like if you remember going into Oppenheimer, which, I mean, spoiler, but if you haven't seen Oppenheimer, I'm sorry, you missed 2023. I remember going into that because Nolan is also a guy who can do similar human thing, add a twist to it. It can get weird and you don't know what to expect until, then Shyamalan, we talked about him before in a similar way.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're going to get until you get there necessarily. And you still might get mind fucked. With Oppenheimer, I was talking about, like, imagine if Christopher Nolan really goes Nolan weird with Oppenheimer, where it's like, this is a Inglourious Bastards retelling of the history where the bomb drops and then actually everything else changes and the world you and I are living in isn't what we thought.
Right.
Something. That wasn't it. It was a much more literal movie than that. Imagine if he got fucking weird Alex Garland with Civil War, where the ending of it is just some things like the ending of Men, where you and I couldn't predict that. You and I couldn't write that. Like a series of the same man giving birth to itself repeatedly while chasing a woman. Like,
right.
I don't think that's what's happening. I think it's going to be a literal ass movie. I think it's going to be a war movie. I think he's doing the old, like, Oliver Stone, Coppola in Apocalypse Now, like, and there might be some weirdness. There might be someone has a concussion and they go into this weird place, or flashbacks or something. I don't know. But it looks pretty fucking literal. Like he's filming his, like, Vietnam movie, but it's set in America in a Civil War way. If you want to talk about zeitgeist with AI and Ex Machina, and you want to talk about zeitgeist with this movie, this is something that since 2016, 17, 18, especially in the last handful of years, especially since January 6th, there's a lot of conversation about, like, this shit might pop off. And how does that go? And my favorite take is everyone assumes that the South would rise and win because they got the guns. And my take is we got the banks and the drones and the technology. So good luck in a 21st century war. But okay, let's see how this thing plays out. Oh, wait, Alex Garland is making the movie? Fucking count me in. This is the kind of plot where we would say, oh man, what would be a great idea for a movie? And you hear that, like, before Jurassic Park, it'd be like dinosaurs, but now, or whatever. This is one of those. Show me current America in a Civil War, and what the fuck is that going to be like? And then you get a writer like Alex Garland. So my expectations for what it could be, the ceiling is very high, and then also because of that, the floor is pretty low. Because if I leave going like, oh man, and if he does a literal phone it in, he's a hired gun for a normal Hollywood Civil War movie, I'll still probably like it. He's so good. I can't imagine I'll be mad. If he gets weird with it, I'll love it. If he gets too weird with it, like Men, I might be even more miffed than I would be otherwise. I don't really know quite what to expect, but part of the game I want to play with you. I'm curious your thoughts on how you're feeling going into it. I also am curious what the vibe you think will be. My honest take right now, with having seen the trailer twice and avoided it every other time I could, hearing a little bit, and also don't tell me too much if you, like, have some inside information or something. So
I don't. So
it is. I'm feeling like it's going to be a literal Civil War movie. There might be some kind of dream sequence, or, like I was saying, a concussion, a flashback, something. The ending might be more imaginative than you would typically predict with a war movie. It might not just be a truce or things blow up. It might be the whole world is nuked and then you start to see a new creature, something like that. Could get Alex Garland at the end a little bit, but I'm expecting it to be pretty straightforward, or at least a realistic conclusion to what a Civil War might look like now, even in a worst case kind of way. What are you feeling going into it, and what are you thinking it'll be like?
I mean, I am excited, especially now that I had a chance to kind of once again refamiliarize myself with his filmography, his way of storytelling. This could very much be him going back to the human elements like we saw in 28 Days Later, Sunrise.
Not human. No.
Well, kind of.
Both of those are either otherworldly or zombies, but go ahead.
But there's always that human morality.
A
human-centric kind of storyline there.
Yeah.
You had the crew of Sunrise who did everything they could to save humanity, right? And they'll do whatever it takes. You have, in 28 Days Later, that hope that humanity can overcome such a crazy scenario as what's happening there. So it could be like a return to form of that. Or we could possibly get, hear me out, this is exactly what this movie is going to be. It is exactly the indirect sequel to Ex Machina, where Ava is the one who is behind the scenes and who is controlling everything. Nick Offerman is also an AI clone.
Put her in charge right now.
That's it. Because we only know Nick Offerman. We don't know who's kind of at war against him, right? So
is he the guy from Devs? I'm not trying to spoil anything.
Maybe.
And honestly, my memory sucks. So like,
let's go Alex Garland, baby.
To like, hey, I'm going to be a businessman who runs for president. Weird.
It could very well be.
It's like his Tarantino concept where he puts all the movies together into one.
That's right.
The Sunshine Crew flies in at the last
minute.
My
God. Yeah. Whoever's left. I mean, I think they're all dead already.
The reason the Civil War starts is because of the zombies from 28 members later. Yeah.
Oh my God. He's just going to, everything is all going to combine into this one final masterpiece of a directing movie that he is going to be a part of. And yeah, it's all going to be AI and cloning.
First. If you're right, dude.
Could you imagine?
Share this video with all your friends. How do I put it? Do you think that it will be literal in the premise of what we're talking about? Because the trailer's pretty vague from what I've seen.
Sure.
I haven't studied it, but do you think it'll be literal, like, oh, we're very polarized, and what's setting it off? Is it something really weird? AI, zombie, something? Or is it, and like, this could also in a way be like a sequel to Leave the World Behind, at least the vibe, right? Of like, we don't quite know, or we've been pitted against each other. There's a false flag or something
threat.
Like that.
There's like a hidden threat somewhere, yeah.
And then things just get weird on accident, maybe, or is it like January 6th, but it takes, right? Or something like that. In the trailer, I think the phrase is something like, the drones, the president has drone bombed its own citizens or something like that.
Something
right?
like that, yeah.
They're in Washington, D.C. now, and so it seems like both sides at least are a real threat to the other.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the premise will be a Fox News versus MSNBC polarized society kind of premise? Maybe something more weird? And do you think the ending will be something as literal as a truce, half the country's bombed to fuck, a bunch of people are dead, or like, in theory, a realistic war ending movie now could be Oppenheimer-y, but next level nuclear war. Sorry to bring the mood down. Just FYI, that could happen at any moment. I forgot to mention at the beginning of the episode, we might not have much time.
Yeah, but how are you feeling about New York got hit with an earthquake today, so like, come on, anything can happen.
Where are we storing those nukes? Are they underneath the earthquake? We don't know. We lost.
I hope not.
Some of them. But how realistic do you feel like it'll be, especially the premise and the ending? We at least know there will be, soldiers, guns, press corps. It's not going to be total trippy weird, at least in the trailer.
I don't think this movie is going to take any political side or political stance here. I think they're going to try to be as vague as possible. You're going to have a lot of people who are going to attach that to this movie, but I don't think this movie will really dive so much into that. Again, we don't know who the opposing side is. We just know it's Americans versus Americans, and we only see a representation of the president speaking on one behalf of America. We don't know what the other side is, really. So I think they're going to at least try to be as vague as possible and not necessarily borrow a lot of things from today's headlines or today's social, environment and climate. Or Alex Garland could just be pissed off and frustrated with everything that's happening here, just like he is in Men, and he just wants to blow everyone up, and kind of start anew. Maybe there's a new society at the end of it all, where everyone is like, we're down to like now 10% of the population, and like these are the new people. Or less. And now let's create America all over again.
For real, also, I just kind of assumed, because the way the conversations go, at least on my end at dinner parties, is, wouldn't it be crazy if the South rose again? Because they've done it before.
Sure.
So it's not that wild. And then they're, especially like Tea Party, Obama era ass, they're taking our country from us, they're taking our guns kind of stuff. But this could be a socialist uprising. This could be some Bernie bros getting wild. And that could be who's trying to take over from the whatever. And then you could end up having multiple sides, and the middle being the White House. I actually, now that you mention it, the trailers don't say. I've just kind of made some assumptions. But you're expecting a literal war story set in America, a civil war, 1860s, but today, basically.
Could be. I mean, I think there's definitely something that triggers it, and it may not be the fault of any one particular side, but it kind of causes that false pretense of there is two sides against each other and we need to act now like that. And we are seeing everything transpire through the eyes and the lens of these reporters as they're going from area to area, trying to piece it together for them to kind of create or report on everything that's happening behind the scenes. And then ending could be a very unique, out of left field type of ending, you know, in a very typical Alex Garland kind of way that may be open-ended and left to interpretation. You know, like, I feel like that would be a perfect Alex Garland type of ending that doesn't necessarily try to predict what could happen if this really was to happen in real life, but kind of just begs the question of, all right, if we were faced with this type of scenario, morality-wise, who was right, who was wrong, who, you know, how would you act in these situations? And I feel like he's done that a lot in his writing. How would you act if there was like a zombie apocalypse? How would you act if the earth was about to go through an ice age? How would you act, you know, if AI was like a big thing and got out into the open without anyone knowing about it? You know, how would you act if there was like an alien, quote unquote, invasion that's trying to take over the human race, you know, by cloning it and mimicking it without you knowing? Like, it's all about
right now,
the
it's like forcing someone to take sides, and the president says, "Yeah, we're siding with aliens," and people are freaked out or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also the fact that when we're talking about the actual American Civil War, which I don't want to do a whole history rant right now.
Please no.
But that war is still going on, like, to this day. I mean, it ended, and there was an attempt at reconstruction, and yet you got a Klan popping up not long after. Not a lot of people were put down afterward and that flag is still flying in a lot of places all over. So it's not that wild of like, it's in our story, but you haven't seen that movie.
Right.
Can you think of, I can't, my memory's not that great, but can you think of another American Civil War movie in this kind of way? Because it's been sitting there for 160 years, longer than movies have been around. And it's almost like the thing we don't want to talk about, and that'll really buzzkill a dinner party. Trust me, I brought it up so many times. People rather talk about, oh, what's your zombie plan, or what would you do in a zombie apocalypse, rather than like, would you enlist for an immoral imperialist country if it was fighting itself, and which side are you on?
Which side are you on? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm not asking you. I'm sorry.
No. I know. Yeah. Yeah, no, I can't think of anything that ever covered that type of topic or that type of subject. I mean,
weird, right?
Yeah,
I think we have a lot of war movies. Not this one. Yeah.
I think people are afraid. I think people are afraid to even bother.
Alex Garland's pissed off.
He doesn't care.
So
excited, I'm telling you, he's so mad. He's like so mad.
What's the one thing you're not supposed to bring up at a dinner party? Politics? Okay, what's the worst subject? The one where brother kills brother?
Yeah. Yeah, let's go. Test me, son. Let's talk about this. And maybe that's why he's lost the passion of filmmaking, because like he already got it all out of his system. And he's like, you know what? I'm good. I'm going to leave you all with this last movie. You know, that's why it's funny. The headlines are hitting a week or two before this movie comes out. And he's like, I'm just going to write from here on out. So enjoy this. This is what I think of all of you.
The trippy ending is it's actually newsreel footage, and he's the last man, and he blew everyone else up, and he's releasing this movie in case the aliens want to know what happened. That's why it's focused on the press corps, the journalists, the reporters.
Yeah. Crazy.
It's their missive, and they hand it to Alex Garland, and he's like, here you go.
There you go.
And you're all dead. This is for some other species.
This is now forever chronicled in the history of humanity and humankind. But regardless of whatever is going to transpire in this movie, we're excited. We can't wait. And it was just really, it was fun going back through the filmography of a great creator, filmmaker, writer in Hollywood, in the industry. Definitely a perfect timing for something like this. And yeah, I can't wait for our reactions to the next movie, which is the next thing we'll be talking about here. And hopefully you'll all be along for the ride. So with that all being said, I think it's a perfect time to kind of close out this week as we end up our recap of Alex Garland's kind of career in Hollywood. So any last words? If not, where can people find you online?
You can find me on the front lines of the upcoming American Civil War. Just kidding. I'm on the first boat to Cuba. You can find me until then. You can find me on letterboxd.com. Screen name, last name, Wolf.
Nice. I think I would either hop over to Canada and just hang out there for a while.
Terrible choice.
I know. Hey, look, I'm just going to hang out for a little bit.
You mean future America?
Yeah, future, yeah.
You mean weird America? Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, I hear they're having their own problems over there too. So maybe that is definitely a bad choice. I'll just probably hitch a plane ride over to Japan or something. I don't know.
You said hijack a plane to Japan?
Yeah, hijack a plane to Japan.
You can't hitch a plane. You got to hijack one at that point.
I'll hijack one.
Good luck.
I'll make sure it's a private plane too. But yeah, you could find me obviously also on Letterboxd, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff under the LOWKEY Geek. Most importantly on YouTube, the LOWKEY Geek channel there. And if you haven't done so yet, make sure you spread the word, you follow the podcast, you give a good rating when prompted, all that good stuff. And yeah, stay tuned for our next episode where we'll be talking about Civil War. So with all that said, I've been Rene. That's been Blake. This has been Movie Time. And we will catch you all next time. Bye-bye, everyone.
Jeez. Unless this means something different in the Civil War.
Oh, no.
No
gang signs, please.
I'm not sure.